Hello Year 5 and welcome to your first history session of the half term with me, Mr. Bristow, and today we are looking at Can I Understand a Timeline of Greek History? So as you'll have seen from your writing session earlier today, we are moving on to our next big topic, which is us learning about the Greeks. And to start off, learning about the Greeks, it's really important that we understand where the Greeks fit in history. And to do that, we are going to look at timelines. Hopefully you would have already watched the 5 things about ancient Greece clip. If you haven't, pause this and take the time to watch that. Gives you a really good introduction into what we are going to be looking at sort of over the next 3 weeks, 6 sessions, to do with the Greeks. If you have done that, stay with me and we will go on. So timeline ordering. Timelining is a really important skill. We use it a lot in our writing to understand sort of the events in which order, to understand the order in which events happen, And it's really, really important that we use this skill as well for history, because quite a lot of the history that we look at Stoke Park, the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, Stone Age, the Romans, some of it can actually overlap, and it's important to understand when these things were. So when you look at a date, you might notice that sometimes there's 2 little letters after the date, and it's really important that we understand what this means. So sometimes you will see the letters BC, and BC in the modern day calendar stands for before Christ. Christians have developed a calendar where basically the year that Jesus was born is marked at 0. And therefore everything before that is given a year BC, or a year before Christ. So it refers to any date that is before the year that Jesus was born. Jesus is said to be born in the year 1 because the Romans had no sign for 0. And rather than say the year was -1, you say it's 1 BC. And that's really important to remember. If we had our timeline here, and Jesus was born here, and this was 1 year, that would be 1 BC, and it would be getting bigger, so you'd have 2, 3, 4, 5 BC. The bigger the number, BC, the further away from modern day it is. So this might be 700 BC. So that's 700 years before Jesus. It's his birth. And 700 BC is further in the past than, for example, 200 BC. 200 BC is not as long ago by 500 years. And then if I were to plot one in the middle, I might be looking at 450 BC. So you can see, in terms of the timeline, the bigger the number, when it's followed by BC, the further in the past it was. So 1 BC is more recent than 700 BC. And when it comes to your timelining later, that's a really important skill to understand, to get it into the right order. 700 BC is like us saying -700. However, at this point here, when Jesus was born, we call this AD, or Anno Domini, and it basically means in the year of our Lord. And that represents anything after the year that Jesus was born. So we are currently in the year 2021, and 2021 AD is 2021 years after the birth of Jesus. So say Jesus was born here, that is 2021 years. And if we were to track back to, say, 200 BC, the difference between 2021 and 200 BC is 2,221 years. So you need to think, any line in the middle is the year Jesus was born. Before that we call BC, and after that we call AD. This might also be written for people who aren't necessarily religious as BCE, which means before the Common Era, or AD might be written as C, which is the Common Era. And Common Era basically means the time that we're counting from. So, if you were to now order this timeline, you'd need to pick a year, a point, and you would say that this is when Jesus was born. And you can then go through and, using the dates, put them in the correct order. So 146 BC would be 146 years before Jesus was born. I then have to look for the next closest number, which would be 336. The furthest one in the past would be the biggest number. So that would be here at 776 BC, 776 years before Jesus was born. And the others can all fit in. So your timeline here starts with the biggest number and gets smaller because this side of my timeline is closer to the modern day. 776 BC is 2,797 years ago, whereas this would only be 2,167 years ago. The difference between here and here is 600 years. So your job, if you're in green or yellow group, is to order the Greek events on this timeline and make sure you read them, because there's some really important events on there. If you're in blue group or in yellow-green group who want to push yourselves a bit, I have included a link to a website where there's lots and lots of events that happened in Greek history. And using this, you could research and put what you think the most important ones on there are. So, for example, you've got 776 BC, first Olympic Games, which we had on the other one. And you'll notice as you go through the website, these will get closer and closer to the modern day as you go through. So, your task, as modelled here, one more time, is to go through and put the dates in chronological order and learn about the most important events in Greek history. Once you've done that, there's time for you to take a photograph and submit it to your teachers. And we look forward to seeing the skills of timelining that you develop.